Hello, I'm Brigantia Blackbird at Blackbird Grimoire. Welcome to the daily forecast for Tuesday, September 24th, 2024. It is the day of the Warrior King. It is Mars Day, Tears Day, the 3rd of Libra, the 22nd of Vine, the 3rd of Raven, and the 1st of Hasmandir. In our astrological lookout, we have the Sun in Libra, cardinal air, representing justice. The Moon is third quarter Gemini, mutable air, representing strong outside influence. At 6:59 a.m. Central Time, it goes void of course, and then at 9:50 a.m. Central Time, it goes into the third quarter Cancer, a cardinal water sign representing emotion. And then at 1:50 p.m. Central Time, our Moon moves into the fourth quarter. Mercury is in Virgo, mutable earth, representing linguistic skill. Venus is in Scorpio, fixed water, representing passion. Mars is in Cancer, cardinal water, representing seeking security. Jupiter is in Gemini, mutable air, representing questing. Saturn is retrograding in Pisces, mutable water, which is to redefine dreams. Uranus is retrograding in Taurus, fixed earth, representing rebellion. Neptune is retrograding in Pisces, mutable water, which is about spiritual awakenings. And Pluto is retrograding in Capricorn, cardinal earth, representing transformation. For our retrograde reminders for Saturn, reclaim your authority. Uranus, reconsider how you rebel. Neptune, reclaim your magic. Pluto, reclaim your ability to regenerate. And for Chiron, restore the heroic spirit. Now, as our moon phase goes into the fourth quarter, the key words for this are release what doesn't serve. So, letting all the things go. For our Cancer moon, the do's are emotional release, family bonds, and nurturing friends. And the don'ts are publicity, objective tasks, and indulging in nostalgia and regret. So today we have the moon and Mars united in the sign of Cancer. So expect to feel perhaps unduly sensitive today, just a little bit raw, and try not to be caught off guard if other people in your life today are also in that similar state. Try to remember that all of this, all of the high emotions, over the sensitivity, some of the disagreements that might blow up over seemingly nothing, these are just moments in time. And, don't throw away relationships over temporary disagreements or issues. Do your best not to lose your temper, and if you feel like a conversation is going very south very quickly, asking the person of, could we table this for right now, return another day, just because I think emotions are a bit high and I don't think that we'll really get anywhere except going kablooey today. So just something to bear in mind. And also, if people are around you, in some kind of relationship with them, maybe your coworkers or your family members, friends, your marriage mate, whoever that it is, and they won't leave things alone, and they are going out of their way of saying, oh well, if we're already here, so we might as well just make this whole scene worse. Those are people that I think it's worth being a bit wary of. It's always interesting to me, the hills that people are actually willing to die over. Because when people talk about their values and what's important to them, I mean, it's a lot of talk, where you really discover where the rubber meets the road and who someone actually is and what their priorities really are. It's when someone touches one of their sacred cows. What do they think is actually worth having a major falling out over? What do they think is worth is ending a relationship over? Where do they think that if someone is in opposition or disagreement or whatever else, that means that person has malicious intent and is actually an enemy? It's very, very telling. And it's something to be wary of, because we should be careful not to be throwing away good relationships. But if someone is really acting in an odd manner, that is actively going out of the way to create problems or make problems worse, we probably need to take a step back, especially once the moon is a bit calmer, and just examine the nature of our relationship with them, because something may not be right. And today we could be getting a pretty significant warning sign. So, again, uh, just be aware of the atmosphere, try to do more observation than you do reacting, and just tread carefully. Stuff could be wild today. Then for our tarot card, we have the Hierophant. He is again from the major arcana, so think persistent, far reaching impact. He is number 5 in the arcana, which represents challenges. And his keywords are secret symbolism, traditions, rituals, and ceremonies, and that of a teacher unraveling the mysteries. So the Hierophant is really, in its most proper sense, supposed to be a guide to help people form their own connections with the divine, with the ancestors, with their ability to connect with the natural world and all of the energies that it entails. help them look for patterns, help them recognize a symbol for what it is. Essentially, it is about being a guide, but it's also a very hands-off sort of thing. And again, and an acknowledgement that the Hierophant, essentially the one acting in the role of priest and teacher and so forth, that they serve a different function in role than your average person who's might be called to an entirely different life. And so realizing that the things that are of utmost importance for the Hierophant to be aware of is not necessarily going to be the same as for your average everyday person, and that is okay. And there's a reason why the Hierophant is a specific job. Now, if someone is benefiting from the Hierophant, I think instead of fighting them or telling them automatically that they're wrong if they happen to mention something that doesn't suit you in the moment, just take a moment to say, "Okay, I need to live with that. I need to think about that for a little while." And then going away and mulling it over. Maybe the Hierophant was off base. Maybe they were entirely on target and it made you uncomfortable because perhaps it revealed a character flaw or it revealed an aspect of your life that you haven't been handling in a particularly healthy way, or a pattern in your life that really does require adjustment, that's going to require work. Everyone is always so thrilled when they discover that something needs work. Maybe the problem was just that we did not like to hear the message and not the message itself or the person who delivered it. So there's a lot of different nuance to be taken in with that card. And depending on how we experience today, we might find ourselves in both position of the person who is seeking the Hierophant and the person who is acting as the Hierophant. So it could be an interesting day, gang. Today's Celtic triad reads: There are three things most precious to humankind: health, liberty, and virtue. Good health is the most precious possession of those who have it. Everything in life is much harder if your health is in tatters. And then when it comes to liberty, life without proper liberty is purposeless, it destroys the spirit, and you're just a slave to whatever person happens to have the greatest force of arms. I mean, that really is it. Um, so that's something to think about, as there are so many would-be tyrants who want to take away what few liberties we do have left. And then on the matter of virtue, the practice of virtue is what separates humans from the animals, and it is our ability to practice virtue, that moral capacity that enables us to seek the gods. It's virtue and our contemplations of it, our abilities to enact it. That's what puts us at that midpoint of as above, so below. We are that center nexus of it, because that's where we are. There's just as much above us as there is below us, which is, again, is a very uncomfortable thought for a lot of people, but nevertheless, I'm tossing it out there. And it is that midway point that gives us the blessing of so many instincts that animals do, but also we have the capacity for reason. We have the ability to decide, yes, I could do this, but I think it would be better by making a value judgment if I did X, Y, or Z instead. That is the thing that brings us closer to the gods. And that struggle between might versus right, that is the struggle of civilization. It is the struggle of the human story about who is it that we are going to be. Are we going to live at a level that is below where we ought to be? Are we going to be purely animalistic, which is not, who we are, or what anything, or and it's certainly not our potential? Or are we going to reach up? Are we going to reach higher? Are we going to delve into those mysteries and say it's not an easy road, but the lack of ease is what makes it so worthwhile to attempt to be better and to honestly to make decisions about who it is you want to associate with. I mean, people who want to live on that lower might make right, and I would say lesser than an animal, because an animal is exactly as they ought to be. They're exactly as nature intended. They are fulfilling their role. They are doing what they were meant to do. So for a human to try to live in the state of an animal, that is, they can't do it, because they're going to be beneath the level of an animal at that point, because you have degraded yourself. You have abandoned this gift of reason from the gods, this gift of moral capacity, and instead of that allowing you to become more of what you already are, it's just this endless degradation and disintegration of the soul. Whereas with animals, they're not disintegrating, because again, they're operating at the level they were intended to. So that's one of the reasons why when people do abandon virtue, and when they say, "Oh, it doesn't matter what you do, might makes right. I'm just going to do whatever, and if people don't like it, well, that's just too bad. They should have been stronger than me," uh, in whatever venue is under discussion. It's why things go bad. It's when we cease to actually be human. It's when we neglect, that little echo that we have that is of the divine and is of the gods. So that's a little something to contemplate today. Now for today's magical correspondences. It's about motivations. The color is red, the plant is black pepper, the animal's the beaver, and the crystal's red jade. Motivations, they cover color every thought, every speech, every act. It's even when people, when they're being very careful with their words, sometimes the energy of what's actually motivating them shines through, and people are going to be reacting to that energy rather than to their carefully crafted speech. And then, you get into a lot of the gaslighting and political doublespeak that I think most of us are really very, very sick of, because the motivation of why someone is purporting a particular idea actually does matter, because what their motivation is, that's going to reveal what their ultimate goal is, and sometimes that goal is not as bright and shiny as they would like people to believe. So definitely look at other people's motivations today. Look at your own motivations and think about what it is you're actually after and what you're actually communicating. Next up, today's practice. Have you taken control of your life? Tuesdays, there is a strong element of sovereignty, including self sovereignty in that. So, how are you actually exercising it? And then we're going on the astrological front. What can you achieve by yoking together the energy of your natal Mars sign with the current Mars position? For me, my Mars is in Cancer, so yoking it, with where Mars currently is, it's this double whammy of that kind of energy. And and believe it or not, despite that's not the most comfy positioning for Mars, there's actually great good that can be accomplished by it, because with the watery energy of Cancer, and it's looking into the emotional state of things and trying to find where people are at emotionally, because uh, the reality is that none of us are as rational as what we would really like to believe. uh, we our emotions do a much louder role, and of course there's a point in which that goes completely overboard. But when you are trying to reach people who are in that overboard state, if you are trying to get people in a way that is going to stick with them, you are going to ultimately have to reach for the heart. And Mars in Cancer, I think, permits us to do that. It at least allows us a little bit more of insight, because remember, the element of water, it is tied with emotion. And so I don't know. I think there are possibilities here. So if you also have Mars in Cancer, this is our time. We could actually use it to great benefit and effect if we just try, and if we're careful and tread lightly. And for other people, there might be ways in which your Martian energy might be a counteracting balancing force of Mars in Cancer, or it could be a way of directing it to where it can achieve good effect. Just use your imagination, think about what these energies mean and how they function, and just see where you can go with that. And then for the solar plexus chakra, have you discerned your true will? And you'll notice that I very deliberately capitalized true will. You will find that in many witchcraft books, because they talk about the importance of magic actually being aligned with that true will, particularly for major workings. Because if you're trying to achieve something and it's not what you really want, and it's not in alignment with your higher purpose, you can expect some chaos to ensue. So examining that, worthwhile thing to do. Today's hermetic principle is vibration. What vibrations are you giving off? We've been looking a lot at a lot of the external vibrations, whether it's in our environment or the people around us. Now let's look inward and think about what vibrations are we actually giving off into the world, and is that a good thing or a bad thing, or is it just a thing? And then to the witch's pyramid, we're looking at the south wall. Think fire element, think drive. What is it that you are striving for? And that takes us to today's journal prompt. What actually makes a dining room welcoming in your estimation? This is very personal. This has to do everything with your comfort level, how you were raised, what you think a proper atmosphere is when you are trying to be hospitable and entertain others, whether it's a brand new acquaintance or family members, or whoever else. What do you think is actually going to make your dining room or wherever you eat a welcoming space? And how can you infuse that? And you'll probably find it has less to do with furnishings or even colors used or anything like that, any kind of thing physical. You'll probably discover that it's more about the mood. So, how is mood created, and what role are you actually playing in the creation of that mood? So, I thought that might be interesting for people to examine today. And that brings us to the close of the forecast. Have an absolutely magical day, everyone. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye for now.